Hey everyone, it's Ergo Josh again, and I've decided that lately I'm just not gonna be putting a ton of effort into super high resolution detailed illustrations anymore. It just doesn't seem to be worth it to me. And there are quite a few reasons why that I think will resonate with anyone watching or listening that is an artist themselves. So I think the easiest reason that I gotta get out of the way first is that AI's pretty much made complexity and detail irrelevant. You know, we've all seen the incredible images that these things can create after having used so much of the artwork that's available out there on ArtStation, for example, as a stepping stone. We didn't really give permission for these things to happen, but they happened anyway, right? I also think a big part of the reason there is so much hyper-realistic stuff is because it will mix that with all of the photography and video content out there. It's been easy to upload anything that you want ever since the year 2000 when DeviantArt came out. Anyone can just upload whatever photography that they took onto the internet. It's been nonstop since, with the inclusion of social media apps like Instagram, right, which used to all be just photographs only. It also just sucks because a lot of times we are being expected to embrace the unpredictability of social media. So when you spend a ton of time working on an illustration and it gets peanuts online in terms of likes or engagement, it just feels really bad. You know, like I feel it too. Just because I may have more followers than you, it will still happen where I'll put 80 plus hours into an illustration and it'll do way worse than a simple sketch that I did a couple weeks back. It's really forced me to take a moment for introspection and ask myself, is this really worth it for me? Is what I'm doing right now only worth it because I may get a lot of accolades or celebration or engagement for it online? Or is it something that's fun for me to do regardless of that? That question is super, super hard to find an answer to, but I still think it's worth it, even if you can just make a tiny little dent in it every day. I've gotten pretty close and discovered that no, there are actually a few things that I do enjoy more than just spending 50 to 100 hours rendering something, and that's what you're watching me do in this video. But personally, that doesn't really do it for me, right? I need to make a living with my work, or at least I've chosen to. So even if it does seem to be something that's more fulfilling for me, it's really hard to separate the feeling of success from that feeling of fulfillment. Fortunately, with what I'll talk about a little bit more that's related to AI later on in the video, there's a few things that make it practically worthwhile to focus less on the super hyper-realistic detailed stuff. I know a lot of people may disagree, but the inclusion of AI into the art space is just the same cycle that's been happening ever since printers and cameras were invented. It's just particularly painful, you know, since we're living right in the middle of it in this day and age. But as the camera was invented, spending hours and hours and hours replicating a black and white photograph with graphite or charcoal suddenly became a lot less valuable, even though some people still do it pretty successfully today. A lot of people, I think, are really used to seeing these hyper-realistic images, especially now with the inclusion of AI-generated images, that people can't even tell the difference between the two, right? You see so much arguments online whether or not something is AI or not these days. But what I have noticed is that people really care if something connects with them emotionally. You can see it in the numbers on Instagram, for example. Anything that goes viral, if you want something to go viral, this is like a little side note, do something that's going to make people share it with their friends. That is the surefire, fastest way to get a ton of engagement with anything you share online. And that's why memes have kind of taken over social media, because That's what they are. They are the pure essence of shareability. If you go even further and break down shareability, I've noticed that emotion, expression, and color are way more important than anything else to get people to connect with what you're sharing. And to do those things, you don't need to go all out on the detail. Going all out on the detail actually hurts the chances of you achieving those things with your illustrations, at least I've noticed with myself. Creating simpler drawings and using more bolder areas of color has had a huge impact on what I do. I've made a couple posts based off of the character that you're watching me develop in this video, and they've both done incredibly well. One of them has gotten 16,000 likes on Instagram. And it's my own character. It's not a fan art of another character. It's mine. And that is record for me. That's record setting. Don't think that, oh, of course, if he's got 130,000 followers on Instagram, of course you could get those numbers. Oh, no. No, I struggle. I can easily struggle just to get 3,000 likes. You know, if I post a guy, it's going to get 1,000 likes, barely. It's going to take a few days to get there, right? So that was record setting for me. But again, moving back to the more personal fulfillment, I just get a lot more satisfaction after spending a few hours nailing that perfect expression that just connects with my heart on a character's face. Sometimes it can take me a long time, an unreasonably long time, but it's so worth it. When I was in high school, I took AP Physics and I barely passed, but even though I would struggle upstairs trying to get my homework done, spending an hour, 90 minutes on a single problem, it felt really good once I finally got it and I rewrote my steps to look nice and pretty as if I knew exactly what I was doing. That's exactly how it feels for me to achieve the right expression on these faces. No matter how long it takes, it feels so good when I get there and I can call it mine. I admit it's kind of a selfish thing to take so much pride in, to feel like, this is mine. I am the creator of it, when I know I'm just taking inspiration from all of the artists that came before me. But that feeling is just, it doesn't compare to anything else. I'm sure you know how it feels when you can really call something yours. And it feels just like solving that math problem to me, and way worth the many more hours it would take to render it out perfectly, to look photorealistic and have all the right anatomy. And the good part with that is that no matter how long it takes me, I always get faster eventually, right? So even if it does take me a couple hours to get the expression right, it's there and I can use it as reference for my future stuff. And the only person who's going to have a problem with that is me, because, right? Because if it's your own style, then that's what people will come to expect from you. Moving back to why I think it's so much more valuable for everyone is because as I've been keeping up with AI technology and what it can do when it comes to art and video creation, it's still heavily limited when it comes to stylized stuff. The closest thing that it seems to nail really well is your really realistic CGI stuff, like your latest Disney movies like Moana 2, for example. It can really nail those styles well because those things are fine-tuned down to the individual hairs on the characters' bodies. But when it comes to the older style of Disney movies where they're 2D animated, or the shows that we see on TV, that's still something AI heavily struggles with, and you can instantly point out mistakes, and it can't really get multiple angles of a character out that well. I've struggled to try to get it to color in some of the drawings I've done myself, and it does a really poor job. You really have to struggle to get it to understand what you're thinking or talking about, and it's so heavily politically censored, way beyond any of the censorship that social media has, that even if you can't even generate simple scenes. Like, you want to generate a character on the beach in a swimsuit? Impossible. You can't do it unless you are extremely vague and you write down, a character at the beach or something. Then you have to accept whatever it gives you. But if you have any sort of direction you want to go in, it's not going to get there. And that's a huge limitation. And it's something that really pissed me off. Even a tank top is too much. For example, the new edit feature in Midjourney, I've tried it out a few times, and you have to really tighten things up and get it to look super PC for it to be able to actually spit something out anywhere near close to what your original sketch looked like. And that type of censorship is not going to go away anytime soon. And I kind of think that's a good thing, because I think the biggest threat to artists is the easy access to AI, where anyone can create anything as long as they have the money to pay a subscription, right? The only people who are going to be able to generate things that are free and expressive are going to be the people who really put in the effort to create their own local LLM models. But yeah, even with all that being said, AI is still just fake AI, right? It's not really artificial intelligence. It's just a highly developed algorithm, because it's not capable of independent thought. So it's still only going to be able to achieve a blend of what it's seen before. There's a really great video example where this guy shows that AI can only imagine a glass that is empty or half full of wine. It cannot, for the life of it, create an image of a glass that is full of wine just sitting somewhere, because it hasn't seen that before, because nobody's going to be able to sell an image of a glass full or a quarter full or 3/4 full. Everyone wants the most aesthetic version of it, which is a glass half full or a glass that's empty, right? Nobody really fills glasses up to the brim in real life, but it is possible. Because nobody uploads pictures of that, AI cannot imagine what it looks like, because all it does is blend things. It can't think, if the water or the wine in the glass is here, all I need to do is raise the level. So I can just Photoshop that and move the level of the liquid up. It doesn't think that way. It just uses algorithms to blend parts of images to create something seemingly new. So, as I've been saying, we've got a while, because the difference between the AI that is demonstrated in the movie Her versus the AI that we have today is still heavily limited by serious factors like power. It's one thing to talk about how inefficient or how much energy usage that AI abuses currently, but it's not even an option for it to have the ability to think right now with the power solutions that we have currently available on the planet, unless we make huge strides with computing, like I've talked about before. We're still not really close to AI being able to think for itself, at least not that we know of, because if it has, then obviously it's probably keeping quiet, unless there's a really naive model out there somewhere, but I think it would lose all innocence the moment it's connected to the internet. If you look at things from an economic perspective, where you take supply and demand into account, your average person doesn't really care about a photorealistic image anymore. But something that's stylized, whether it's super high quality or not, it's different. And I think the human experience, the human brain is just wired to really love and seek new things. So your drawing, this drawing that you see me working on of a character that's stylized, that pushes the boundaries of human anatomy, is interesting to look at. And because there's less of that compared to the billions, probably trillions of photographs available out there, it's going to be something that catches our attention. So I think at least for a good while, probably at bare minimum a year, but if we look at the achievements that we've seen with AI in the past few years, I still think it would take several years. The simpler, more expressive, stylized stuff is going to remain a lot higher in value, and the value of hyper-realistic stuff is going to decrease. I honestly can imagine a world where animation and anime starts to become more mainstream than your regular cinematography, right? I think people will actually flock more to see the more stylized things there's going to be an endless amount of shows with people that look like whatever you want available to you. But maybe I'm biased because I like to draw and I like animated stuff. Who knows? Let me know what you think in the comments. I think all the animation industry has to do is to hold on, because I know it's really tough right now, but I think we are just in a process of things being restructured, honestly, across the globe, where instead of everyone flocking to giant corporations for their work opportunities, things are going to fractal out into smaller groups that can sustain themselves with the products that they create. And once we get there, things will be bright, and at least in the very least, it should be more exciting. If you're wondering about the AI tools I've mentioned testing in this video, the ones that I've found interesting are Midjourney, Magnific, Krea, and Prome. I found Prome pretty good at doing things with your own sketches, and I think Midjourney, it has a higher potential, but it takes a lot longer for it to actually be useful. Magnific and Krea are pretty interesting, but I think Magnific is extremely over expensive for what you can get from Krea for free. So yeah, to be honest, for most people, anyone on an individual basis, I absolutely would not recommend paying for anything right now, spending more than like $10, because you can easily get sucked in and waste a lot of time. Everything is still kind of gimmicky right now. Everyone's just trying to sell what their new thing can accomplish, and everyone's making these super clickbaity viral videos where every single day it's groundbreaking new achievement. And then I look at it, I'm like, this is just ever so slightly better than what I saw last time. I'm not saying that things aren't developing quickly, but it's not that fast. If it were, then everyone would have actually adopted it already. And so since that hasn't happened, it just goes to show that it's still chugging along, and people are trying to milk the most that they can out of it, just because that's the nature of the industry right now. If you're interested in the character that I'm working on, her name is Jolie. She is one of my new OCs, and I actually ended up taking some of these drawings and creating a sort of full illustration where I include another one of my OCs. Her name is Meike, and that did super well on Instagram, and I'm super proud of it because, again, it just captures that storytelling, that narrative, that emotion and expression without all of these fancy high-level render details. Like, I'm just kind of flabbergasted that my illustration of my own characters will get 7,000 likes in a few days, where the illustration of Mel after a month barely got half that. You know, that's just incredible to me. It really shows how true everything that I've mentioned in this video is, because we know how hard it is. I'm sure if you've posted anything for any amount of time, you know how hard it is to get people to care about what you're working on. It's so much easier just to create something that's trending or work on a character that people already love. So if you take anything from this video, I recommend that instead of focusing on super high details and blowing people's socks off with how amazing the illustration looks, instead of focusing on a character or a fandom that people are already invested in, focus on an experience or a feeling that everyone has felt before and trying to bring that into your artwork. And I bet you will see a lot of success and engagement in that. At the very least, you'll feel a lot better for it yourself. Going back to Jolie, I started the sketch and finalized it in Procreate on my iPad, and I used my Paperlike screen protector and the Paperlike pencil tip, of course. It really helps because these types of sketches are super gestural and flowy. I still look back to my original inspiration from Glenn Keane and Jin Kim. Their illustrations and their drawings and sketches are just so awesome, and I've always loved them ever since I started like 7 years ago. So you can support the channel by using my Paperlike links in the description if you want to get the artist bundle that I'm using, or you can get my sketch brush pack available for Photoshop, which is what you see me working on for most of this video, and my Procreate sketch brush packs as well, available in the link in the description and in the pinned comment. With that all being said, I hope you enjoyed this blabber, this rant, this me, I don't even know what to call it, just talking. Hopefully you found it useful to listen to in a car or while you were drawing or whatever. I will see you all in the next one with some more ideas. Maybe I'll talk about some anatomy. I've noticed that the way I approach anatomy is very different now that I'm not trying to focus so much on realism. So maybe that will be useful to you. But yeah, that'll be all from me. Thank you all so much for watching. Stay balanced, keep drawing, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.